What else does Texas need to add from the portal? Who's still out there for them to add? We'll answer both of those questions next on Locked On Longhorns. Intro.
You are Locked On Longhorns, your daily podcast on the Texas Longhorns. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in. You were locked on to the Texas Longhorns, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the number one sports podcast network in the world. I'm your host, BK, Brad Kellner, Texas grad, Austin local, and longtime sports radio host here in the Lone Star State. Thank you, everydayers, for making Locked On Longhorns your first listen every single day. We are, of course, free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, so please subscribe. And as always, one of the fastest ways to help us grow is by leaving a comment. So thank you all sincerely for that. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The college football playoff is here, and FanDuel is the best place to get into the action all playoff long. So visit FanDuel.com to get your college football playoff profit boosts every game day. We'll talk about the Horns' newest portal addition in segment 2, and then we'll recap Saturday's loss for Texas basketball in segment 3. But first, let's talk about what's left for Texas to do in the portal. While the deadline to enter the transfer portal is technically behind us, more and more names will continue to populate the portal over the next 3 days. You might be wondering why. Well, remember the 2 business days rule? The deadline to enter the transfer portal was Friday at midnight, but Saturday and Sunday are not business days. Today is MLK Day, also not considered a business day. So schools really have until Wednesday night to get every name in the portal. Kind of absurd. I agree. So there's plenty of time for more names to show up. And obviously, there's even more time for recruits to visit and ultimately sign with the Longhorns. The deadline is only for when you have to enter. You don't have to commit, sign, visit, all of that stuff. Really, there's no real deadline for that. So I would be very surprised if Texas was done adding to its 2026 roster. So where else could they add? Well, we can scratch linebacker off the list. Yesterday afternoon, the Horns signed Akron transfer Markus Boswell. We'll get into that pickup a little bit more in the next segment. Because of that get, I think linebacker's off the board, and I think we're now down to 5 positions that Texas could, and in some cases, I think should, be targeting. The first one, still the most important one, offensive line. Yes, Steve Sarkisian has already added 3 offensive linemen from the portal. No, that is not enough. Only one of those 3 is a guaranteed starter this season, and that's just not good enough in an all-in championship or bust feeling season that 2026 is. So where do the Longhorns go up front? It seems like Jordan Seaton is no longer an option. On Friday, we talked about how it didn't make a lot of sense for Texas to be paying the reported asking price for Seaton after the Longhorns signed Melvin Siani, the Wake Forest transfer tackle, earlier in the week. There were some insiders starting to report that Texas wasn't really involved, and it turns out that was the case, right? The initial scuttlebutt was that Seaton was going to visit Austin on Friday. He did not come on Friday. He was not here at all this weekend, and not only was he not here, but he did go visit 3 other schools, and he's going to be in Eugene, Oregon today. So that's 4 visits following the conclusion of today, none of them to Texas. I think that ship has sailed. So I'm going to assume that Jordan Seaton is off the table, and I think that is a very safe assumption. So now I think the Horns' focus will shift more towards an interior offensive lineman. There's only one of those that has been linked to Texas over the last few days. That's Louisville transfer Jordan Church. He was supposed to visit Austin today, but he visited Lubbock over the weekend and committed to Texas Tech. I'm not sure if he signed, so maybe there's still a chance he ends up here. We know commitments do not equal signing nowadays, but obviously not ideal that he visited there and ended up committing there before he left campus. So if he's off the board, I'd almost expect a Melvin Siani situation, which means, no Texas person had mentioned Siani before the day he committed to Texas. Why? Well, because he wasn't even in the portal until the day he committed to the Horns. He was not on anybody's radar outside of the Texas coaching staffs, obviously, but nobody in the outside world really had any clue who this guy was and that the Horns were going to be adding him to the team. My guess is there's a name, potentially 2 or 3, that the Longhorns will be watching very closely over these next 3 days. Offensive line continues to be position number 1, was the biggest need from the start of the portal window. Again, the Horns have done a solid job adding 3, but only one of them is a guaranteed starter. I think they need at least one more of those. I wouldn't hate a second one if we're being completely honest. So that's position 1. The other 4 positions, I think, quarterback, wide receiver, edge, defensive back. I'll go in that order, not really in order of importance, just the order I gave you here. We'll kind of rapid fire through a few of these. Look, Texas has its starting quarterback, thankfully, obviously. But I wouldn't be surprised if Steve Sarkisian is looking for a Matthew Caldwell type again in 2026. Caldwell's experience came up big at times in 2025. And think about the overtime game against Mississippi State, right through the game-winning touchdown for the Longhorns in that Miracle Road victory in Stark Vegas. I think Steve Sarkisian would love to have a veteran backup just in case something happens to Arch Manning. I'm excited about KJ Lacey. I'm excited about Dia Bell. I think Steve Sarkisian is excited about both of those guys too, but those players have basically zero college football experience. Having a more proven insurance policy for the most important player on your team feels like a sensible idea. Again, it makes sense to assume, or at least think, that Steve Sarkisian could be looking for it, because the Longhorns were in a pretty similar spot a year ago, and they ended up bringing in Matthew Caldwell. That's a guy that you can add a little bit later in this cycle. So that's quarterback. Wide receiver. That's another spot where I think Sark could be looking for another veteran presence. This wouldn't be a Cam Coleman type of at. This wouldn't even be an Emmett Mosley type of at. But, outside of the Longhorns' top 3 with Coleman and Mosley and Ryan Wingo, there isn't much experience at wide receiver. Khalil Lockett, Dalen McCutcheon, they're probably 4 and 5 on your depth chart right now. Those guys have 12 career catches combined. Both finished their freshman seasons, 12 total catches between the two of them in the 13 games that Texas played. And you've got a bunch of other guys, true freshmen, coming in who obviously have 0 career college catches. So adding another guy with some experience who's comfortable and willing to be a 4th or a 5th guy on the depth chart would work. It makes some sense. Somebody who wants some money, somebody who doesn't have a guaranteed NFL future, who would like a degree from the University of Texas and a chance to hang out in Austin for a year and, again, make some money in NIL. That would be a good fit. The next one feels more important, right, from a playing time standpoint. Again, quarterback, wide receiver, we're talking about backups. Good to have those, but I think Texas is still looking for a major contributor at edge. I brought up Prince Will Umanmielen during Friday's show. He's my favorite player, regardless of position in the portal. And I've been told that Texas is interested, as they should be, but apparently a return to Ole Miss is still on the table. And obviously Lane Kiffin being at LSU makes the Tigers a front runner if Umanmielen does end up leaving Oxford. Now, could Texas put enough money on the table to at least give themselves a chance, you would think? And Prince Will, as we talked about on Friday, is from the Austin area, played his high school football at Maynard, just east of town. So the hope is that means something there, right? The chance to play in front of friends and family for your last year of high school football. But I do think it's an uphill battle. Again, Texas is interested. I've been told by a couple of people that the Longhorns are doing what they can to get involved here, but we'll see. Texas has unfortunately been screwed by guys who say they're entering the portal and end up staying at their previous school. And obviously, again, the Lane Kiffin factor, something to pay attention to. Another edge name to know is Damon Wilson, the Mizzou transfer, visited Texas Tech on Thursday and Friday. They offered him, but no commitment there. He's also getting interest from Ohio State and Miami. So some big dogs on the recruiting trail. As of now, there's no visit to Austin on the calendar, but both of those guys specialize in rushing the passer. I would love for one of them to be on the opposite side of Colin Simmons on the Texas defensive line. And then lastly, I think we're on the last one, defensive back. I don't have any names for y'all for this position, unfortunately, but another corner or nickel could be in the cards, right? Texas finding a way to keep Kobe Black and Warren Roberson around after they flirted with entering the transfer portal. That demotes defensive back from being a huge need to now it just kind of feels like a bit of a luxury. Again, experience depth in as many places as possible is a good strategy in today's college football. But obviously, if you lose Black and Roberson, or even one of those guys, you would have felt like, okay, we really need another corner here. Making sure those two dudes are sticking around the 40 acres is big, but depth experience depth, not a bad thing, especially this coming year with 12 games, 9 of them in the SEC, 1 of them against Ohio State, only 1 bye week. And hopefully, you're playing 3 or 4 rounds in a college football playoff. So depth guys matter. You love the Cam Colemans, the Rasheem Biles, the Hollywood Smothers, the Raleek Browns, but the late portal depth adds could be what pushes this Texas team over the top. Here's to playing in the game on MLK Day at this time next year. So there you go. The latest positions of need, who Texas could be targeting, and what I'm hearing in the transfer portal. Obviously, we'll keep you up to date throughout the day and throughout the week as more and more information drops. All right, Texas did add a portal player yesterday. Let's talk about Markus Boswell. Easy for me to say. I should learn the guy's name. He is coming to Texas after all. Markus Boswell coming to Texas. What are the Longhorns getting with their newest linebacker? We'll dive in next on Locked On Longhorns. But first, a word for our friends at FanDuel. The college football playoff national championship game is tonight. And FanDuel is giving all customers even more ways to get in on the action during every single game day of the college football playoff. Hopefully, you've already taken advantage of this in the previous rounds. Tonight is your last chance because every college football playoff game day, FanDuel users get a profit boost waiting for them in the app. Here's what I love about it. You get to use the profit boost on the bets you already feel good about. You can ride with the favorite. If you think Indiana is going to dominate again, boom, you could take them. If you're going with the underdog, you like Miami tonight, playing at home, you could do it. You could build a parlay around the players and moments that you think are going to decide the game, and then you apply the profit boost and go after even bigger winnings. And when you win, FanDuel pays out instantly, which is perfect for playoff football. FanDuel is the best place to get in on the action all playoff long, including tonight. So visit FanDuel.com to get your college football playoff profit boost every single game day. All right, welcome back. Locked On Longhorns, your team every day. Don't forget about the Locked On Everydayer Club. If you want to listen to this show ad-free every single day, all you have to do is join the Locked On Everydayer Club. It's $5 a month or $50 a year. LockedOnLonghorns.supercast.com. You can check the link in the show notes for more information. You will not regret making this move, I promise. All right, the Texas Longhorns added their 16th commitment from the transfer portal yesterday, landing a pledge and a signing from former Akron linebacker Markus Boswell. If you are a Texas high school football fan, that name might sound familiar because Markus Boswell, my goodness, played his high school football at Lake Travis right here in Austin. If you're a Texas Longhorn fan and that last name sounds familiar, Marcus's dad, Mark Boswell, make sure I get the name right this time, he was an Olympic high jumper who also did the high jump at Texas back in the day. So there you go, a legacy pickup for Texas, a local pickup for Texas. Maybe you're both of those things, a Texas high school football fan and a Longhorn fan, and you still have no idea who I'm talking about. So a little background on Markus Boswell. He just wrapped up his freshman season at Akron, played a decent amount for a true freshman, appeared in all 12 games, nearly 300 snaps total, 19 tackles, a sack, a forced fumble, 2 fumble recoveries, an interception, made a few things happen as a true freshman. Nearly 200 of those snaps came on defense. A bunch of them were on special teams, but pretty solid numbers for a guy playing his first year of college football. We've obviously spent some time talking about Texas being in the market for another linebacker. I was pretty sure they were. I wasn't sure if they wanted a third win-now guy in addition to Rasheem Biles coming in from Pitt, Justin Cryer coming in from Florida State, or if they were just looking for more of a developmental piece who can help this team beyond 2026. It turns out it's the latter. That's what Boswell is. Now, considering how much he played as a true freshman, expecting him to be at least a part of the linebacker rotation this fall doesn't feel out of the question at all. I think he's going to see the field definitely on special teams, but also some with Will Muschamp's defense too. But then you consider what Texas already has at linebacker with Rasheem Biles and Justin Cryer, with Anthony Smith, with Brad Spence seemingly going back there on more of a permanent basis. The 5-star Tyler Atkinson just arriving on campus a week ago. Cracking the 2 deep is not going to be easy at all for Markus Boswell. And look, this is a really good problem for Texas to have. Like, I'm very satisfied with the job that this coaching staff was able to do in replenishing that linebacker room. They lost their top 3 guys and 4 of their top 5 guys, if you want to throw Bo Barnes in there too, from the 2025 season. a couple of weeks ago, I was wondering what that room was going to look like. Remember how big of a deal it was when Leon Galafau announced his intentions to enter the transfer portal? And you're thinking, well, Anthony Hill's gone, Trey Moore's gone, now Lafau is gone. Where is this team going to go? They've done a fantastic job of reloading that position room. I mean, it looks talented, it looks experienced, and it looks deep, at least to me. Markus Boswell obviously helping with that. 6'2", 230 pounds, runs a 4.5 40, has 3 years of eligibility remaining. And here's something that maybe gets you a little bit more excited about him. He trains with Derrick Johnson. Yes, that Derrick Johnson, the legendary lifetime Longhorn, the best linebacker in school history. It's awesome. I mean, Boswell posted a Twitter account or a video to his Twitter account on December 28th, working out with Derrick Johnson here in Austin. Wonder if DJ tipped the coaching staff off to this guy. How's that for a vote of approval, right? One of the best players to ever don the burnt orange and white tells the staff that, no, this guy is worthy of being a Texas Longhorn. That would be pretty cool. Maybe the Texas staff already knew about him. Again, he did play his high school football in Central Texas at Lake Travis. Maybe this thing has been in the works for a while, but regardless, love the fact that Markus Boswell is training with and learning from Derrick Johnson. That is a very good guy to learn how to play linebacker from. And that wasn't a one-off, by the way. I mentioned that video that was posted on December 28th. Those guys have been working out together for a while now, dating back to Boswell's time in high school. So smart kid, makes good decisions. Also a great athlete. Again, comes from fantastic genes. I played baseball and ran track in high school at Lake Travis, in addition to playing football, obviously. So Johnny Nansen getting a nice piece to work with, and the Texas defensive staff, again, getting a guy who can help. Jeff Banks also getting a guy in special teams who can help in 2026, but also you've got a piece that you can mold and develop over the next few seasons as well, because Rasheem Biles and Justin Cryer likely gone after this year. To Anthony Smith could be gone after this year. So you don't want to have to go all portal to replenish that room every single offseason. Having some guys who, again, can be here for multiple years, never a bad thing. I'm excited, man. I'm so excited to see what this defense looks like under Coach Boom. I think we all are. Physicality, violence, attacking. That's what we want. And you know, Will Muschamp has a say in all of these portal and recruiting decisions that Texas makes. Like Steve Sarkisian has basically told us that no, Coach Boom is going to be the head coach for this defense. That means Will Muschamp likes what he sees from Markus Boswell. He would not have signed off on this if he didn't. So that excites me as well. Again, a guy who works out with Derrick Johnson and a guy that Will Muschamp likes, that works for me. So I assume that'll be the end for Texas's search for more linebackers. That's now 3 additions in the portal. Maybe somebody else comes into the fray late. But again, as we talked about in segment 1, a bunch of other areas of need for Texas. Still in the market for an edge, perhaps another defensive back too. A couple of guys they could add on offense, including up front. I feel like the Horns are probably set in stone with that linebacker spot. But I do like this pickup. And again, tip of the cap to Texas and the entire Longhorns coaching and recruiting staff for finding a way to make sure that linebacker room wasn't going to have some sort of huge drop-off despite all of the departures. There you go. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Comment below if you're tuned in on YouTube, your thoughts on this pickup. Can you pronounce this guy's name better than I can? Where else do you think Texas needs to add here in the portal? We've got one segment to go on a Monday show. Talking about Texas basketball was fun on Friday. It is not so fun on a Monday. The Longhorns' very modest winning streak came to an end. What went wrong for Texas against Texas A&M? And a huge issue that absolutely needs to be fixed if this Horns team is going to make the tournament. We'll talk about it next on Locked On Longhorns. But first, a word for our friends at TurboTax. Tax season doesn't have to take over your life. And this year, our friends at TurboTax are making it easier than ever to just hand things off to them and move on with your day. With TurboTax Full Service, you can have your taxes done for you by a trusted local expert. I mean, start to finish without any stress, without any guesswork. Instead of spending hours trying to figure out forms, you can meet with a local TurboTax expert or just connect online, and they will handle everything from W-2s to self-employed forms, and they can work to get you every single deduction. Really simple. You upload your documents, you go about your day. You're going to get updates in real time right there in the TurboTax app. This is a huge time saver And also, you're going to get peace of mind knowing an expert is handling your taxes. For a limited time, you can have your taxes done by a local TurboTax expert for just $150 all in. If a TurboTax expert didn't file for you last year, just make sure you file by February 28th. Take taxes off your plate and get back to your life. Visit turbotax.com/local to book your appointment today. All right, final segment, Locked On Longhorns, your team every day. We were hoping the Texas men's basketball team had turned a corner following their back-to-back wins against top 15 teams on the road at Alabama last weekend, and then the midweek dub against Vanderbilt. Unfortunately, Saturday was a bit of a reality check for Sean Miller and company as the Longhorns committed the unforgivable sin of losing to Texas A&M at home. Even worse. All right, maybe that's a bit of a stretch calling it an unforgivable sin, but look, we don't like losing to them, especially in Austin, and that was A&M's first win in Austin since 2002. Seriously, Texas A&M had not beaten Texas in men's basketball in Austin since 2002. Even with the long hiatus with these two teams in separate conferences, it was still an 11-game win streak for Texas here in the ATX, either at the Drum or at the Mood. I was hoping that streak would continue. It did not. What went wrong for Texas in the 74-70 loss? Well, I'll let Sean Miller explain it first.
We each had our halftime break. And I'm telling you right now, in the first 4 minutes of the second half, we were not ready to play. There was one team that was running fast, and there was one team that was not running nearly as fast as they could. There's one team that came out of halftime ready to play it all the way to the end from start to finish, and one team that, for whatever reason, just couldn't quite get up and get after it like you're capable of in the SEC in a game of this meaning in that first 4 minute segment of the second half. If you add up the last 3 or 4 minutes of the first half and the first 4 minutes of the second half, that's where the game was won and lost. They crushed us in those two segments. But the one at the end of the half was different than the beginning of the second half. Our lack of effort, again, I know I keep saying this, and I don't want to say when we lose, he gets mad at his guys playing hard, and when he wins, he doesn't. I'm not saying that. For most of the game, I thought we played with a lot of effort, and we did some great things. But that 4 minute segment, what happened in that 4 minute segment was a reflection of us not understanding the stakes here. And from that point on, we just don't have that luxury and room for error to overcome a 4 minute segment like that in any game of the 18 in the SEC.
He's right. You know, he harped more on the first 4 minutes of the second half, but I'm going to harp on the entire middle 8, obviously, which includes the last 4 minutes of the first half. Texas was outscored 20-7 in the middle 8. Before that, the Longhorns were actually up by 6. It was 24-18. Texas looked pretty good early on, but then that middle 8 stretch happens. The Longhorns went from up 6 to down 7, and they never led again after that. And against good teams, A&M isn't a great team, but they are a good team. You're playing with fire if you allow a run like that. Sean Miller talked about it. You can't have a stretch of bad basketball that lasts that long against a team in this conference. That wasn't the only thing that plagued Texas. What else? Well, it's something that already has, and I feel like is going to continue plaguing this team. And it's unfortunate because it might be what keeps Texas out of the NCAA tournament when we get to March. Obviously, a long way to go. Still 13 games left for Texas to find their way in. But the problem is there is not much depth on this team. And I may be being nice by saying not much depth. You could argue there is none right now. The Aggie bench outscored the Texas bench 20-6 on Saturday, and we've seen that happen way too much this year. You know, Kendall Weaver's very good. He's a spark plug off the bench. He gives you juice on both ends of the floor. Not a ton offensively in terms of putting the ball in the hoop, but he gets a lot of offensive rebounds. He sets guys up, and he can get you a bucket or 2 or 3 in a game. But outside of him, there's just not much there. And Kendall Weaver was bad on Saturday. He was -16 in the plus-minus category. More of a self-imposed electrocution than a spark plug against Texas A&M. And then outside of him, you know, Sim Wilcher, he's sporadic. He's erratic out there. Like his feel for the game just isn't good enough, and it leads to inconsistencies. Lassina Traore, he just doesn't look up to this level of play. He's also coming off a major knee injury that caused him to miss all of last season, but he's still, he still may be finding his game a little bit, but still it's we're past the halfway point of the year, and you're not getting a whole lot for him. And it basically came from Long Beach State. I know he transferred to Xavier, but because he missed all of last year, like he's jumping from Long Beach State to Texas in the SEC, doesn't quite seem like he is good enough right now. And those are the only three bench guys who play. It's Kendall Weaver, Sim Wilcher, Lucina Traore. Two of those three guys are not doing hardly anything. And then Kendall Weaver kind of is what he is. You know, Texas A&M had 10 guys who played at least 5 minutes and 8 who played at least 10. Again, those guys did more than just play. They actually impacted the game. Texas doesn't have that. I don't think Sean Miller trusts Nick Cody or Declan Duru or anybody else on the bench for that matter. So it's imperative that the 6 to 8 guys who do play actually give them something. And again, when your bench is just going to give you 6 points total, not going to get it done. The Longhorns did a lot right in this game. They didn't turn it over a bunch. You know, A&M runs that full court press for 40 minutes. I thought Texas handled that pretty well. They out-rebounded A&M. They won the free throw battle. They just didn't make enough shots, didn't get enough second chances in the second half. They couldn't stop Ryland Griffin and AG. And those guys, they had Texas's number. And look, the Horns will get another crack at A&M later in the season. That bench issue, that lack of depth. And it's tough, obviously, for the coach. Wasn't left a whole lot in the cupboard, taking over for Rodney Terry, having to basically piecemeal a roster from nothing with a bunch of guys that he had never coached before. I'm going to give him a little bit of a year one pass for that. But again, if this Texas team wants to hear its name called on Selection Sunday, you got to find more than just 5 guys who are going to help you. Honestly, Cam Heide had, 2 shots? I think 2 points on Saturday. You really only had 4 guys who were contributing in that game. Tough to beat quality competition without getting more from more. All right, up next for Texas, by the way, at Kentucky tomorrow. Kentucky a little bit down this year. Nice win for them, though, on the road against Tennessee over the weekend. This is potentially a good time, though, for the Horns to be playing Kentucky. Longhorns have never won at Rupp Arena. They've only played there once, so not a lot of history between those two sides. That'll do it. Love to get y'all's thoughts on Texas basketball, your concern level. Do you feel like the Alabama Vanderbilt run was a fluke? Do you think Saturday was a fluke? What's your confidence level in Sean Miller in his first season as the head coach for the Longhorns? That'll do it for today's episode. If you made it this far, number 1, God bless you. Number 2, please remember to like, subscribe, share, leave a comment, rate 5 stars, all of those great things. Can't thank y'all enough for your continued support of Locked On Longhorns. For your next listen, check out Locked On Bets. My man Lee Sterling and Kevin Rogers, they've got you covered. All of your sports betting needs. If you're looking for some thoughts on tonight's national championship game, yeah, Locked On Bets has you covered. You can find them on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. Markus Boswell, that's the name of Texas's newest transfer. My goodness. That'll do it for this one. Thanks so much for tuning in. Until next time, horns up, mics off. We'll see y'all soon. This is Locked On Longhorns.